Hi, and welcome to Grammar Lessons with Heather. This lesson will explain the present perfect. Let's get started. Before we look at the uses of the present perfect tense, let's briefly go over how to form it. The present perfect is formed by using the verb have with the past participle, or the third form of the verb. For example, we can say, I have been to China. I have had a good time. I have seen that movie. I have known her for a while. I have tried Korean food. The present perfect is a tense that can cause a lot of confusion, and this is because it has so many different uses. As you can see from this diagram, the present perfect can be used to describe unfinished actions, especially when we want to explain how long or how many times we have done something. But it can also be used to talk about finished actions, like experiences we've had in our lives. And finally, it can be used for what I like to call action items. These actions can fall into either category. I'll explain what I mean by action items shortly. Let's begin by looking at the first use of the present perfect for unfinished time, which is to answer the question, how long? In the example sentence, I have lived here for 3 years, you can see that we have used the present perfect. If we look at this on the timeline, here we are now. We arrived here, and the time in between is 3 years. We use the present perfect for this because it is not finished. We still live here now. The words for and since are often used with the present perfect, but it's important not to mix them up. We use for when we are referring to a length of time. Listen and repeat the following sentences after me. I have lived here for 3 years. I have lived here for 2 months. I have lived here for a few weeks. I have lived here for a while. I have lived here for a long time. We use since when we're referring to a particular point in time. Now let's read some sentences with since. I have worked there since last year. I have worked there since February. I have worked there since I came to Canada. I have worked there since Monday. I have worked there since my birthday. What do you think of this sentence with since? Do you think it's correct? No, it's not, but it's a very common mistake. Don't use ago with since. Instead of saying since 3 weeks ago, you could say for 3 weeks or since May 3rd. Now let's look at the second use of present perfect for unfinished actions. We often use this tense to talk about how many times we have done something during an unfinished time, like today, this morning, or this week. For example, I have had 3 cups of coffee today. If we look at what that means on a timeline, here we are now. This is when we woke up this morning, and we have had 3 cups of coffee so far. We may still have more coffee later today, but since today is not finished, we use the present perfect here. A common expression to use with this kind of sentence is so far. If I say, I have had 3 cups of coffee so far today, I'm emphasizing the fact that since today is not finished, I may still have more coffee later. Now I'll explain another use of the present perfect, which I'll call action items. This can be used for both finished and unfinished actions. Let me explain. Imagine that you have a list of things you need to do. Notice that 3 of the items on this list have been done. So, if we ask the question, have you done your chores? You might say, I have taken out the garbage, but I haven't washed the dishes. Some words that are commonly used with this type of sentence are already and yet. When we use already, notice how it comes between have and the main verb. When we use yet, notice how it goes at the end of the sentence. One more word that's often used with this type of sentence is just. We use just when we want to emphasize that we completed the action very recently. If you look at the timeline, here I am now. I cleaned out the garage a few minutes ago, so I can say that I have just cleaned out the garage. Note that native English speakers often remove have in sentences like this, so they will say, I just cleaned out the garage. Now let's look at where we sometimes use the present perfect to talk about finished actions, and this is to talk about experiences. So, for example, if I ask you, have you ever gone bungee jumping? I'm asking about your experience with bungee jumping. So, maybe you went bungee jumping sometime in your past. So you could reply, yes, I have gone bungee jumping. But what's important here is that you don't say when you went bungee jumping. If we ask the same question again, but this time we want to mention that the bungee jumping was on July 1st, we will have to answer using simple past. Yes, I have. I went bungee jumping on July 1st. Only use the present perfect when you mention the experience with no reference to time. As you have seen from this video, the present perfect is quite a complicated tense. So let's finish with a review of what we've learned. The present perfect can be used for unfinished actions. We can use it to talk about how long we have done something. For example, I have lived here for 2 years. It can also be used to talk about how many times we have done something during a time that is unfinished, like today or this week. For example, I have had 3 cups of coffee so far today. Next, the present perfect can be used for action items, where we talk about what has been done so far or what hasn't been done yet. For example, I have washed the floors, but I haven't done the dishes yet. And finally, it can be used to talk about finished actions such as experiences we've had in our lives, as long as we don't mention when we did them. For example, I have been to Hawaii. I hope you found this lesson useful. Thanks for watching.